So, DevOps, is that a thing? I would say yes, and just to prove my point, there are actually a lot of QA people agreeing with me on that one. There's a thing called the Well Quality Report, came out in September, and one of their 5 key recommendations are transform QA and test function to support agile development and DevOps teams. We're going to cover that today, and I'm also going to try to cover define a test platform strategy on an enterprise level. I'm not going to do the bio, you read the bio, and you can read the presentation afterwards. We have more interesting stuff to do. So a little bit of context. The organization I come from have like 3,000 employees, over 500 within tech. We have a platform that supports about 25 different brands, and we have some 30 suppliers going into that platform that we can provide to actual millions of users. I work for the platform team. We have one in Budapest and one in Stockholm, and we have some 10 development teams, between 60 and 70 developers. We're agile, so it goes up and down a bit, and we have currently 5 QA developers. You don't have to be a mathematician to actually realize that the ratio isn't that great, which was kind of the ground thing that made us develop this model that I'm going to talk about today. But then came the DevOps thingy, and we kind of implemented our model into the DevOps thinking. So DevOps and DevOps tool chain. There are a bit of confusion of what DevOps actually is. If you look at the Wikipedia, no, you don't have to read all this, but this part is kind of interesting. Automating the process of software delivery and infrastructure changes. And building, testing, and releasing software can happen rapidly, frequently, and more reliably. So it's basically agile with turbo. So setting up a new machine, setting up a new environment, everything you need to do your testing should be, as far as possible, automated, and then you can do stuff a lot faster, which is kind of a thing for us testers to try to adopt to. There's a thing with, and also of course it's not a role. I know there are people called DevOps. I'm not 100% sure what they do, but it's basically an organizational change. You can be a DevOps in a non-DevOps organization, and that will not work. But the DevOps thingy has 2 basic flaws for us testers. There is no universal definition of what DevOps is. This is one model. There are many out there. This is one of the most known. And the DevOps thinking is basically the brainchild of developers, which means they have actually looked at how they can do the stuff faster and easier and don't have to have the hustle with the operations team stopping them doing it. So we need to add quality to this. So if you look at this model, it basically says test here in this little box in the verify thingy. Everything else is like cool and dandy, we don't have to do anything. I hope you agree with me and a lot of other people that testing is actually something that should go on everywhere. If not actual testing, there should be some kind of quality initiatives supporting this model. So how to do this? First of all, we have to understand activities in each of these sections. Since there is no universal description how it works, you actually have to talk to people, talk to your developers, talk to your operations team, talk to your DBAs or whatever infra, what you have that are involved in this. You need to understand what they mean by each of these steps, if they have a tool chain at all, and what they're actually doing. So I'm using a model, so I make my life easy. We look at create. Create is in this case design, coding, building, and releasing. A large portion of the software development lifecycle, but that's in that little box. So, okay, as soon as we understand what's in that box, we can then identify what we want to do that correlates with these operations. And what we did was to sit down and define what, a small comment to help us, and identify if this is a sapient, which is a manual or human action, or if it's a machine action. A unit test is of course written by a human being, in most cases, but running it is a machine action. So we wanted to know what things are still being done by humans and what things can we provide the machines with and kind of load off the human beings. So, and then we repeat for everything that they are actually doing in the DevOps team, and in this case in the DevOps toolchain, rinse and repeat, identify, and then we should prioritize and implement, which is kind of the tricky part of this. So, enter Tequila. So you don't have to sit during the presentation wondering what does Tequila stand for. It doesn't stand for anything. It's just a cool name that we started a project with, and it's stuck. But it's our quality integration model that we are working with. And the objective to this was basically because we had so few testers and so many teams, we had to do something. And we started with modeling all the ideas we had. We wanted to build in quality, since we didn't have time or the resources to actually do testing. And now we want to adapt to the DevOps thinking. By easily a plan, you should also have a plan. Everyone should be committed to the quality of the product. That means stakeholders, your POs, your developers, QAs of course, and everyone that's kind of involved in bringing out these products. And the quality initiatives should be added to this DevOps toolchains with high automation. Since they are automating everything that's in their part of it, we need to automate as far as possible and do intelligent automation, like smart. And we decided on a 5-stage model, and we jointly defined the criteria for this. And the thing that we push on for primarily business is working software over new functionality. We need to get a buy-in on this. We cannot add new things, cool stuff on something that doesn't really work. So, as everyone else does, if someone already done something, steal it. I found a model in this book, How Google Tests Software, is to Google Test Certify. It basically is the same thing. We want to make all the team members actually do some testing and be part of the testing. This is the same thing. But don't go into the trap of actually just copying someone else's idea or model. You need to personalize it. So we removed stuff that we weren't interested in, we added some new stuff and edited some stuff. But we kept their basic idea. And then just to make it more clear, we actually did categorizing on top of this. So we added the 5 different categories or areas, which are deployment pipeline, test coverage, features, process and analysis, and non-functional, just to make it clear what all these initiatives are. There are currently about 35 initiatives, and I will give you some samples. So you see, it's actually not rocket science. It's things that we have been doing for a long time, some new stuff, but we just need to apply to this model and make it more clear to the outside world and the teams what we're doing. Perform a 4i principle, easy. We need to have pair programming, mole programming, reviews, something that actually makes the code pass more than one guy's brain. We want to identify non-deterministic tests. Gabor was talking about non-deterministic tests. That is really, really important. If we want to have a step that says all tests should be green, we need to actually rely on these tests. It's quite easy. If the environment doesn't support the testing, we need to fix the environment. If we have flaky tests, we need to fix them, quite honestly. Guarded commits. No code should leave the developer's machine and going into some joint environment without actually passing through some security gates or quality gates. We have the 4i principle. We define what kind of unit and integration tests they need to do, and all of these need to be in place and need to pass. Simple as that. In the planning process, when we plan a new story feature, we kind of decide what type of testing should be applied to this feature or story. And acceptance test is one of them. Should we have a quiz? What's the difference between acceptance test and the user acceptance test? Acceptance test is basically what the requirement says, what we know that the thing should do. And we try to cater for that, test that, automate it as far as possible. User acceptance test, we give the software that we built to the stakeholders, and they can hack away on it and see that, yeah, it does what I suppose it should do. Thank you. So there's two things that kind of are confused sometimes. And we sorted out some dependencies. So what should we do first? What dependencies do we have in the system? What can we do whenever? And then out of that, We also had a thing that we thought was really important here, is to actually sort out processes first, and then we add tools to it. Because we have over the years realized that just adding tools to something and hoping that it will fix it doesn't really work. We need to try out the process. If the process works, we throw some cool tools at it and we move on. This is a good way to do it. So, current model. I hope you're all excited. So, I'm going to read from, no, I'm not going to read from left to right. There's currently like 35 initiatives in this. Yes, it includes things like exploratory testing, session-based testing, identifying your performance issues, and basic stuff. But all the teams should kind of reach the top level, so we have all on the same basic foundation. It makes the life a lot easier for us. And how do we implement this? Well, it's not a walk in the park. We kind of started this as a ground movement, tried to build it from ground up. And then along the way, we got buy-in from business, our product owners and so on, which was kind of needed to take it to the next level. But implementing this, we have a team member that is included in something called the QA forum, or the Tequila group. And that, since we don't have testers or QAs in every team, but it doesn't really have to be the QA. It could be some other person that has an interest in this, that could be a member of this and be the driver of the team. And this QA forum sits down, look over all the initiatives and see, okay, do we have a plan for this? Is this really needed? Is this a good thing? And the same thing is then done within the team. See how they will implement this initiative. And it is the team effort. Initially it was like, yeah, we have one QA Tequila guy that got the initiative and had to do everything in the team, and everyone else like, oh, I don't care. There are ways to kind of get people into the idea of raising the quality. If I have some time over at the end of the presentation, I can take some samples. But the thing is the team. So our SEAL teams, software engineering alchemists, or cross-functional teams, if you like. That's the more common name. But we like the cool naming and stuff in our organization, that's why. This is a very, very basic team organization. Everyone is the specialist. So you have some kind of requirements guy standing at one end, doing the requirements, throwing those at some poor developer trying to develop this, who throws it over the wall again to the tester, try to verify that everything's working. And inevitably, I mean, he will come back to the developer saying, what the hell is this? This doesn't work. How should it work? I don't understand the requirements. Okay, so needing to talk to this guy. What are the requirements? And this takes a lot of time. It goes back and forth, and it's not really good. So I guess you have seen this little thing, the T-shaped people. As most ideas in software development, this kind of came from a totally different kind of business. But the idea is that you are still your specialized skill, but you have some idea at least of what other people are doing. As a tester or QA, you can talk about testability with the developers so they understand, okay, I need to add some hooks here for this guy to do his testing. You can talk to the requirements people. We would like to have requirements in a different way so we understand them. And quiz question, is BDD a test case design thingy? BDD is basically communicating with your stakeholders. What comes out from the BDD, the behavior-driven development tool, is then the given when then thing that can be used for development, testing, and what not. But BDD as per se is not a test design thing. It's actually the communication. And everything in this goes down to communication. You need to communicate with people. You need to communicate with the developers and the operations team to see what they have in the pipe when it comes to DevOps, and then you get your ideas what you're going to do in the quality section. And it's the same here. You need to communicate. And if you know a little bit more about what the other people are doing, it's a lot easier to communicate. This is why this T-shaped idea kind of got from. So this is the, maybe not the latest, but one of the newer ideas about the whole thing. The shape on the left-hand side is kind of called a broken cone, because this kind of evolved. It was like pie-shaped people, cone-shaped people, and whatnot that kind of evolved from this T-shape, and now we got the broken cone. Basically, we have a common platform of knowledge, which is the generalist thingy, so we can all talk the same language. As a tester, you have some kind of system knowledge, you might have some coding knowledge, and quite honestly, I mean, as a pure tester, you might not have to learn how to code. But if you ever learned a language, you might be able to read the language and understand people talking it. You might not be able to actually speak it yourself or write anything in it, but you can get the idea by reading it. That's the same thing with code. You get the idea by reading people's code. So hanging in on code reviews, any coded test, automated test should of course also be reviewed. That goes without saying. And doing that, you actually get a good thing going. And then we throw that into the DevOps organization. So we have the technical or infra support to go faster. And to be able to go faster, we need to communicate, we need to have knowledge that we didn't have before perhaps. And when we get this going, we have some magic happening there. In that point where everyone is talking the same language, everyone has a common understanding, yay, that's kind of magic. It's so magic that some people say that can't happen. I will kind of argue that yes, it can happen. I have seen it happen. It all depends on individuals, and teams, how the team is functioning, the chemistry between the individuals and teams, and how clear your objectives are. But it can actually happen, and when it happens, it's really, really cool. If you have teams that really doesn't adopt to this, and if it doesn't really work, I would suggest that you kind of try to switch people between the team, have coaching or whatever, and see if it actually resolves itself. Sometimes it doesn't, then you have to move on to something else. So, some takeaways. Get insights. And this is down to communication at all ends. If you do any sprint meetings, at the end of the sprint you have a meeting saying, well, okay, what could we do better? In our case, it's like 95% of everything is, well, it was a lack of communication and bad communication. It's a source of all evil when it doesn't work. Model your ideas. Feel free to steal other people's models or generic models, but the main thing is make the content of the model your content. Make it your own. You can try to copy and paste in your organization, it usually don't work. And since this is moving so fast, you need to automate as much as possible. You cannot automate everything, but select your bells. What are you going to do? Manual testing or explorer testing or whatever you want to call it, and where can we automate with the cheapest effort and the biggest gain. And build cross-functional team. And last but not least, monitoring. Monitoring is really important when it comes to agile and especially on the DevOps thinking. Everything goes so fast that you need to have monitoring in place. Start with a heartbeat monitoring. Is the service up? Is the server up? Can we still ping the machine? Whatever. If you want to have a talk about replacing tests with monitoring, we can have that talk. It's totally possible, but once you have this in place, you can kind of keep calm and deploy it. So that's cool, isn't it? But remember this is really, oh sorry, did that help? It's a bad plan if it admits no changes. Any plan you make, and especially a plan like this, needs to evolve. You need to work with it, you need to change it, adapt it when you move along. Because you cannot make a plan that, in our case, we have been doing this for over a year basically, trying to get this in place, and you cannot have a plan that goes over years and have the end result or all the steps in the plan like on first day. That doesn't really work. So adapt the plan according to your findings. Make small steps. That's the thing. So, questions? Either I was totally clear or totally fuzzy, or do we have any questions?
First of all, thank you very much.
Thank you.
we will have some questions.
Ooh. Is it possible for a multinational company to directly move from V model to DevOps without implementing agile methods first? Yes and no. I mean, if you analyze what the DevOps things are doing, you can basically replace all the things with a V instead of the fine model that I made. But I think everything that's around the V module, how you think, doesn't support the DevOps thinking, because you sit down for like 5 months and draw up all the plans, all the tests, everything, and then all of a sudden you start coding, at least if you do Roop or some of these, and that doesn't really scale. I wouldn't think so. You have a try, but I would think that Agile is kind of the base to go into DevOps, really. And that's it.
Okay, yeah, so far I haven't seen more incoming questions. Let's see if there's anyone with more questions. Do you guys have any more questions? You can add it on Slido.
No.
Okay, then my question.
Too clear, excellent.
Yeah, everything's clear. So I have a question here.
Yes.
So what do you see will be there for you to change? I know it's always a difficult question, but now, what do you think will be a major change in your whole concept?
I think the major thing is still getting all the teams to realize that there are teams within a great organization. Currently, all the teams are working individually with this. We are running our tests, they are working excellent, Yahoo, and what we are working on is parallelization and so on to make it everything go faster. What we need to realize, and I think most people need to realize that moving forward, if I commit code, I kick off my test in my team and they go out green, but it might touch someone else's stuff, some other way, on some other end of these services or front end, web, whatever you have. So you need to be able to actually kick other teams' tests as well, moving along. So it's a really hard thing to solve. We have started with actually having like a special test set that will be run, kicked off from other people. So we haven't really found a model where we can see the connections, that my service there actually touching his service there and moving on. So starting a test set in team A will actually kick off a set in B, C, and D as well, but unlimited sets, just to verify that it's actually still working. I think that's the big challenge, to actually see that the team is a part of a much bigger picture. And that's the next challenge.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And yeah, that was the last question. Unless anyone has any more questions, I can even give you the mic. Okay then, thank you. Oh, actually, last question.
Okay.
We still have time for it, so thank you.
How do you convince people on becoming cross-functional? It's like everything else, you need to take it in small steps. The hardest part is to get developers to embrace testing and see that point. One trick we did, I also have worked as a Scrum Master. I see the role as a Scrum Master and tester actually works very well as long as you have a team lead. And I had the thing that we have a testing column, so you may not take anything new to start on a new feature until the testing column is empty for all the other features. And that means that, okay, so if your tester, QA, or whatever you want to call that support person, is busy, then someone else is doing that testing. But the guy or girl or whoever who has the insight in the testing can coach you. Ask them, what am I going to do? How will I test this? How will this work? And then by grade, you will actually make people more interested in this function. And they know that, okay, I cannot start a new feature until I actually finish the testing. Excellent. So we'll empty the board from right to left. We fill it from left to right, but we empty the board from right to left. And that is actually one of the tricks that work really well. Otherwise, we have doing testing on a toilet, which means that we put up small notes where people meet by the coffee machine, actually on the toilet and so on, with just small tidbits like, who reviewed your latest commit? Like, to make people think, to just not be like, okay, I'm done my thing, the next. So make the interaction work between people.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
And that was the last question.
Okay.
So thanks again.